Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I hope you can hear me. Today we are going to be having a conversation about cash flow and personal finance, and our speaker is going to be Reed Achille. He's here, and I'm going to turn over the screen to Reed, and without further ado, here we go. Hopefully I can figure out how to do this.
Yeah, I wonder if I can just take it. Looks like I can.
You want to go ahead and unmute yourself, Reed?
I did. There we go. I can hear it. Okay. Thank you all for joining. There's 9 now. There's a large group here. So that's excellent. So today we're going to talk about personal cash flow, right? Normally we come in, we talk about budgeting, and there is a little bit of that in here. But this to me kind of takes it to that next level, right? Because there's one of those situations, I know I've experienced this myself. I know that I make enough every month to pay for my bills, but why is it that when it's come time to pay bills, there's not money in there? Done that before. And so it really goes beyond just knowing what comes in and what comes out. You have to know when and how. So thinking in general, looking at a calendar, right? A lot of people know when they get paid. I get paid on the 15th and at the end of the month. So I got money coming in. But what happens in the middle is you have your bills, right? And these are the things that I'm looking at. I have the one on the 1st for rent, right? And then I've got the one at the 11th. We'll call that one internet or cable. And then the 20th we'll call a cell phone. And the 23rd we'll call a car payment, right? Those things, they don't change, right? Your rent is the same every month. Your mortgage is the same every month. And so, the way that I have it broken out here, you got 2 that come after that end of the month paycheck and 2 that come at the middle of the month paycheck. Well, that's fine. But what happens when you add in stuff like groceries, right? Those variable expenses. You go to the grocery store, you buy the same thing week after week, and the amount is different every single time. So you got to know how to plan for things like that. But what about gas, right? We're coming up on Memorial Day weekend, right? People are going to take a trip. So that's what I had here at the end of the month, is showing you fill up on a Thursday. How do you need to fill up again on a Tuesday, right? So now it's really starting to come into, well, I had this money. Look how much is coming out after the 15th, right? I don't know what the going rate is for a tank of gas. For me, it's about $65, right? But then that changes. It's been as much as 75. I don't drive a large truck though, but I've seen, you pull up to the pump and you see people put $150 in there. Like, I don't know how people can plan for that kind of stuff, especially with it being so variable. But really what I'm highlighting here, these are the things that you know about, right? You have to get gas, you have to get groceries. But it's all the other little stuff in the middle, right? Those things that you're not really planning for, that you're not really thinking if it's $5 here, if it's $15 there, if it's $20 there. Ultimately, it all adds up, right? And so you're looking at this situation where on a month, you know how much money you make. This is what I was talking about at the beginning. And you know what your big bills are, right? Again, your rent, your car payment, that stuff. But how much is your grocery bill every week, right? What are you buying? Get family coming over? Are you doubling up? Did you plan for that? Did you work that in, right? So to really get a handle on this, I'm challenging everybody here. Step 1, right? For the next month, write down every time you spend money, every single time. What you spend it on, how much you spent, when you spent it, and where. And then also fit it into a category, right? And I'm talking about everything, right? What's if you're 1 day late returning a book, what's that cost? If you're 1 day overdue.
We don't actually have fines, but
man, I need to move to Plano. 25 cents. That's where I was getting at. The point is, write that down, right? 25 cents, write it down. You got to know everything, right? The vending machine, the gas station. Um, if you stop by McDonald's and get, one of those dollar hamburgers, right? All of that. Because what that's going to do, it's really going to teach you how and where you really spend money. Nobody forgets about rent, right? But like I said, it's all the other stuff. The other thing that this is going to do, it's going to help you find what your bad habits are, right? Mine is lunch, right? I don't like leftovers and I don't want to make something new to bring to lunch every day. I work in Frisco. The cheapest lunch I have found is $20. So if I go to lunch every day, that is $100. That's $400 a week. I mean, $400 a month. I'm sorry. And it's not stuff that you think about, right? Because it's, oh, I'm just grabbing lunch. Oh, I'm just grabbing lunch. And it adds up. So, like I said, you can use the calendar like I had on the other page, or you can just write it down in a notebook with dates. But it's really going to show you where you're spending money and what habits you're developing, right? Again, everybody's going to know about the big ones, the ones that you pay every month, but you're going to find out what those little things are. Um, I am going to say it. I know every time somebody teaches one of these finance classes, it's, oh, just give up your Starbucks every day. Like I don't go to Starbucks every day, so that's not my thing. So that one never landed for me. Like I told you, mine's a lunch. It's not one place, but it is every place. Um, but this is the goal of what you're trying to find out here is what are those things that you don't know about, right? If you don't write down every single thing, is something bad going to happen? No. But the only person that's going to be affected negatively by you not tracking that is yourself, right? Because you're trying to get a handle around what everything is. You'll also really get to see if it's a certain time of the week, right? Is it Mondays? Is it the weekends? So really, you're wanting to know where you're spending your money and how much at a time. Because the other thing that I know too, and this is another one that I personally had to break myself of, is that if you make that first charge, then like that the floodgates open, right? Because you're like, oh well, I already spent that money over there. What's just a little bit more? What's just, oh, I've already breaking it. It was like when I tried to lose weight. You're like, oh, I'll try to just have a little snack, and then it turns into like a treat month, right? And then you're off your plan. So really, the only one that you're hurting here by yourself and not tracking this is yourself, right? So this will also really help you think about what you're spending money on, right? Because that's the thing that even when I see it, I talk about it and I keep talking about it because eventually it's going to land. But I'm like I said, I still spend $20 a day at lunch. I know it's where I lose a lot of money. It's just getting over it. But the more I talk about it, I'm going to help get myself past that, right? Um, my previous one, I used to collect like bourbons and stuff, right? And they get up in price. Then I've got this big shelf, but I don't drink at home, right? Because it's who wants to drink at home? It's weird, I think. So I've got this big collection. Now I've spent all this money, and what do I do with it? Nothing. I just look at it, right? So it doesn't really help. But doing this kind of exercise really helped me understand what that was. So once you've done all that, now you do go create your budget, right? You know what's coming in, you know what's going out, and then you know where to pay, right? Again, we talked about groceries, we talked about gas, we talked about those variable expenses. So it's really from there knowing what to allocate and how to do it, right? I also had a couple of best practices here because if you have that picture of where your money comes in, where it goes, how fast it's leaving, you can help yourself. Purpose of the meeting today, right? Cash flow. You can help yourself make sure that you always have that right amount of money in there. So some of the best practices, right? Number one, know when it's going out faster than it's coming in, right? If all of your bills are front loaded at the beginning of the month, if you don't do your right budgeting, right? You get half of your paycheck right there at the beginning of the end of the month. If that's not enough to satisfy all those expenses that you have front loaded, you're going to have to do a better job of budgeting, right? Or what I like to do is number two, you can call and say, I want to pay my bill on the 15th, not the first. They'll do that. Now, there might be a little bit of a charge to, because a lot of times with interest or with service providers, they charge you by the day. And so if you want to change your date, you might have to pay a little bit in advance to make up for those days that they didn't charge you in that cycle. but then going forward, it's going to be on the, so this is what I've done. I've watched this. I take all my bills and I split them in half. So half of them are at the beginning, half of them are at the middle of the month. So especially the big ones that are important, right? As soon as I get paid, those come out. It's not because I like seeing low account balances. It's just I want to pay it and be done with it and move on. So this one has been the biggest one for helping me, is rearranging when due dates are on payments. I had an asterisk there to talk about those potential different charges, that are on there, based on the days. Some providers might not allow you to do it. Your account, typically it needs to be in good standing. You can't be late. You can't have any charge offs, right? Or sometimes they just won't change it. But it's very few and far between that they won't change that due date for you because they just want their money too. And then the last one, is credit cards. And I know in this time I've actually been watching, credit card debt has been creeping back up. I'm sure everybody remembers the last few years, around the pandemic and when a bunch of people were working from home. There was all the great stories about, oh, people have paid off debt, now they're saving money. And well, that's that's gone. People are back to, spending more, running up credit card balances. So if you are in a situation where you have multiple credit cards, but you're not maxed out on all of them, look at if any of them have different offers, right? Because the minimum payment, let's say you have $20,000 spread out across three different credit cards, the minimum payment of those three different credit cards is going to be more than it would be if you had all $20,000 on one card. So it doesn't matter if one card is full, if you have other credit cards available. When you're looking at it from a credit score perspective, I know a lot of people are worried, oh, if I max out my card, then I'm going to have a hit to my credit score. They don't look at the individual cards. They look at all of the credit that you have available to you. So if you have one card that can hold everything, but it's going to, max it out 95%, that's fine because they look at all the credit that you have available to you. The other thing with balance transfer offers, a lot of times they have better interest rates. So your payment will go down on the interest rate, and it will also go down because you just have the one payment versus the three minimum payments. So not only will this help you budget, because looking back up to the second bullet point, you can adjust when your due date is on that card. And then, when the balance transfer offer runs out, you can just transfer to another card, right? That's one of the things that I've seen. There's a lot of balance transfer offers going out. Last I saw, the average interest rate on a credit card was about 24%. I know I have some of my own that are over that 24%. So that is just a national average, but I don't want to be paying 24% to somebody. So I like to take the offers and move it around to help me with that payment. So number three, the other thing, that can be done that's really important here is getting what your overall costs are down, or at least not making them go up. And these two here on the left are two of the biggest ones. I drive an 11-year-old car right now, and those two first bullet points are why I don't get a newer car. The average, if you go out and get a car payment right now, the average car payment is going to be $725 a month. For the average used car, it's $535 a month. So if you want a new car, can you afford an additional $725 or $535 into your cash flow, right? I know there's a lot of folks that, bought cars just before the pandemic or just after the pandemic when prices were artificially high because they were charging you, extra because it was tough to get cars. So what that's turned into is now people are just comfortable paying that for cars. So that's what cars are doing right now. So real story, like I said, my car's 11 years old. A couple of weekends ago, I went to go see what it would cost to lease a Toyota Camry. And it was $900 a month to lease a Toyota Camry. I mean, sure, they're nice, but $9,000 was getting close to, or $900 is close to what I was paying for my first mortgage. and and that's to rent a car for 3 years and give it back, right? So think about those things. Do you need a new car? Do you even need a new used car? Are there other options out there available to you? Um, the other one is housing. And I know this is going to come off as probably low for this area. I live in Louisville, and it's low for my area. I wish my rent was $2,100 a month, but it is not. Um, so this is the entire Dallas Fort Worth area and everything that's encompassed in there. But the average residential rent, so that includes apartments, rental houses, $2,100 a month, right? That's gonna be bumped up by some of those, nice penthouse type places, but it's also going to be drugged down by a lot of the studio, really small type places. But 20, like, you have to be thinking if you're going to move and you're going to rent a place, you're looking around $2,100. And again, that's going to be regionally specific. Um, again, I live in Louisville and mine is significantly more than that. Um, that makes me sad. But so also, talking about buying a house. So buying a house right now, and this is national, right? And this also includes mortgages that already existed. So this isn't taking out a new mortgage, but this is looking at all mortgages. The average 30-year mortgage payment across the country right now, $2,700. For a 15-year mortgage, it is $3,500. I will say that that is probably low. Again, if you're looking particularly in this area, um, last I saw, the average national new house purchase price was about $450,000. Again, that's going to be regionally specific. I don't know what it is in Plano. I did do a survey of the closest neighborhoods around where I live in Louisville. Average sale price was $725,000 on houses. And these aren't new houses. They're not, I mean, they're just houses that have existed out there. And that's just what people are paying for houses now. So you have to think about that. This stat from the Dallas Morning News came from March. And so in Dallas, to qualify for a new mortgage, the household needed to have 120, we'll round down, we'll call it $120,000 to qualify for a mortgage. And again, that's looking back up there at the top, paying that three-ish, four-ish $1,000 a month, right? So that is a lot. I know here in the area, especially as other folks have moved in from other parts of the country, it has raised our cost. And unfortunately, for those of us that live here in Dallas, none of us got raises because people moved in from other parts of the country. So it's something that we're suffering with right now. But again, looking at what we have and where we are, if you do have the ability to stay where you are, if you can't afford the cost, right, compare it to what it would be if you were taking something out new. And those are going to be for your fixed expenses, right? That's the other thing with a mortgage, with rent. It's the same thing every month. It always comes up. Hey, it's the first. It's time to pay. It's the first. It's time to pay. So that's something that's never going to change, right? So going back to mortgages and cars, if you know that you're going to struggle making that payment in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, that means you can't afford it, right? So think about that. The other one are ways to reduce your variable expenses. And I do all of these. I definitely use coupons in any of the savings apps. I don't know if anybody follows any of the coupon people on TikTok. A lot of great information that I've gotten there. Um, but yeah, you have to almost make it a second job, right, for saving. Um, when I'm in the grocery store, I shop at a Kroger. You have to look for the tags that have the little QR codes on it, right? Because that means you have to take out the app and take a picture of the code and then get the coupon for it to be the price. Um, but if you don't do it, right, you're just paying full price, for something that you don't need to. So definitely recommend doing all of that, using all of that, and using it to your advantage as well. The other one is to shop around. I do go to Aldi. The fact that I like to drop every time. Does anybody like Trader Joe's? I guess there's a few people here that can raise a hand. Aldi and Trader Joe's are the same company. So go shop at Aldi and get the same food for cheaper. The other one that I like to use, I don't know if anybody's seen them around, but the Wild Fork, right? The frozen meat supermarkets. Has anybody seen those? Fantastic. I filled up my freezer for $70 last week of just meat, right? All the stuff that's expensive at the store, right? Go get it frozen. It's cheaper. And then when you thaw it out, you don't know the difference anyway. So those are some of the ones that I like. And then generic versus name brand. We've talked about all but the same things with grocery stores, especially. I'm jealous of you in Plano that have an HEB. Their store brand is pretty good. And the stuff they make in store is pretty good too. So it's not all about necessarily just buying name brand. But these are all of the things that you can do to make tweaks to your budget, to go back, to add, to go in and look in the calendar. And so what I want to do, and this is the part where the audience participation comes in, and I do like to ask people for questions. Um, you're here today because there was a reason that brought you in, right? So I have my volume turned up so I can hear. For those of you at home too, please speak up and share. I want to know what it was that when you saw the headline, right? So you knew about the cash flow. So what are the cash flow problems that you're running into? Start calling on people. Okay, so put another way, if you don't have any cash flow problems or questions, what would bring you to a cash flow meeting?
So one participant said that they don't have any problems when they have a job. So just finding a job, it was maybe their.
Yeah, okay. And that's a good one, right? There's a lot of different options that are available. And we've actually talked about this a few months back here at the library. Um, when possible, look for any of the short-term, it's called gig work now, but it used to be called temp work. You can sign up with a temp agency. But if you have reliable transportation, you can be an Uber, you can do DoorDash really easy. And not to say that needs to be your permanent job going forward, but in these situations where you're struggling, it sounds like they don't have problems finding work, but it's just consistent work. You can use some of those to help out. The other thing, especially with the advent of the internet, it's really allowed people to share their hobbies and make money off it, right? So there's a woman in my complex, she loves knitting. So she knits sweaters and sells sweaters on Etsy. Does it make a whole lot of money? No, but it's a hobby. She enjoys doing it and is able to help, with some of those cash flow crunches as well too, right? So if you can't find the job of your dreams, it doesn't mean give up on searching for it, but definitely look for some other ways to introduce some other income. And right, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Postmates, any of those allow you to sign up easily. You can work on your own time. They don't have a schedule, and it's an easy way to give some time and earn some money for doing it. Good question.
We had two other people who said that they just felt like they spent a lot of money on small things or were living beyond their means and needed help making a realistic budget. Do you have some sites that can help them with that or suggestions?
So unfortunately, a lot of those websites used to be free and are not free anymore. So I would say look at your bank app. A lot of times they characterize it. But I would also go back to that first recommendation that I had, and really I went too far. Take a piece of paper and write every single thing down, right? And I'm guilty of that exact thing that they were talking about, is those things that you don't keep track for. And normally every time when my budget comes off pretty dramatically, it's because I don't I get away from this and tracking really where my money's going. So, I pick up stuff like this, when I notice that, my cash flow isn't where I want it to be. I start really drilling down on what it is that I'm spending and where I'm spending. And there's no better way to do it than writing it down. Want to finish one point, but I do want to hear the question. I was going to say, psychology has proven if you hear something, you can remember it, but if you write it down, you actually learn it. And so that's why I'm encouraging people to take a notebook and a pen and paper and write it down, because there's something about the actual motion of writing it down that really gets it into your learned memory and not just recall memory. So yes, your question.
Well, I feel because I got a promotion on my job 6 months ago, which gave me an extra $1,000 a month.
Congratulations.
I did not see it. So I think that's definitely going to help for me to see where my money is going.
Yep. Yep. And that's a good lifestyle creep is a good one, right? And the other thing to do is check, right? Look at your pay stubs, right? And see what that actually translates to in take home.
Oh, I did.
Okay. Okay.
That's not including taxes or anything. That's the actual take home that I bring home an extra $1,000.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm spending.
So yeah. So there, yeah. So that is 100% lifestyle creep. And not to call you out, but yeah, but when it's a number, right? I mean, and I'll use you as an example. Hey, here's an extra $1,000 a month. Here's an extra $12,000 a year. Those numbers start to get big and start to get real. So again, so you lose track, right, of where that's going. So there's no amount of money that you can make that this becomes not valuable, right? There's always something that you can find. So what do you think yours is?
I am going to say that I frivolously shop at Target.
Okay.
It's where I would go get things that I needed before. Now I just, oh, I like it, and I get, you know, so things like that. Target is a store.
Okay. Okay.
Just think, oh, well, I think before I would say, okay, well, I have a shopping budget of, I can only spend this much money today, or at the store when I go shopping. Now I just, if I like it,
Yeah. Yeah.
where I was thinking, if I had $1,000, I could save, and my savings just so be better than it did before.
That's right. That's right. No, and so that's a good one too. And so, I mean, that's just again proof that a lot of these things I know when we come and we talk about them a lot, and then everybody thinks like, oh, that's kind of common sense. But it's true, right? It happens often, and it happens a lot. So, the couple of recommendations that I would make, at least right here. So try to, take act like that $1,000 isn't there, right? What I would recommend, go to your wherever you're do you get direct deposit or do you get a physical check? Okay. So I would go to where your direct deposit is, take that $1,000 a month, stick it in a different account. Just create a different account. So then it's just like that paycheck that you used to get that you used to live on, and then try to work within there, right? Because the other thing that's going to do when you see that dollar amount, what comes in is it doesn't have that extra $1,000. So you don't have that same mindset, right? Now,
To the savings account or another card or something.
that's right. That's right. And that's what I do, right? So at the bank, we're allowed to have 8 free checking accounts. I don't know why it's 8, but it's 8. I have 3, all right? I have one that's not linked to my online profile or to my debit card, right? Because especially with the app, and brings me to another point. But with the app, right, it's really easy to be like, oh, well, I'm trending down, but I'll just move some money over, right? And then you're just adding steps and making yourself not disciplined, right? So when it's not part of your app and not part of your debit card, like I have to go into the bank to talk about it, right? That I can't use my debit card. I have to use my driver's license. So I have to go into the bank and then I can move stuff, but it's there. I know it's not going anywhere. And it's difficult for me to get access to it. So for an emergency, if it's there, it's there. But that's going to be a good one. The next one, and I was waiting for someone to bring it up, but I kind of talked myself into it when talking about the app, is Amazon, right? Amazon, and you have your card saved in there, and you just hit buy, and it shows up tomorrow. Like that is the most expensive game that you can play is Amazon, right? Because it doesn't really add up as you're clicking like, oh, tomorrow, oh, tomorrow, oh, tomorrow. And then all of a sudden you've run up this big bill. You never type in your credit card anymore, right? Because most of them are linked. I foolishly signed up for the Amazon card. So like I don't even see a physical card. Like it's just tied to the account. Also turn off the subscriptions, right? Does anybody do the Amazon subscriptions? I had to get rid of those. Well, or like the groceries and stuff, right? Like for some reason I signed up for a bunch of vitamins and right, like I don't take vitamins all that often either. So now I have this like big back stock up in my pantry of all these vitamins that I signed up for, right? Because then I was thinking, where's this money going? Like, why am I? And then I look at the cabinet, it's like, oh yeah, it's all these fish oil supplements. It's fish oil. It's the chewable ones are like gummy bears. Um, but I don't take them, and they're just right. They're there in my closet. So like that was one that again having to go back to write everything down, understand where everything's going, because stores do a really good job of getting you to spend money, and they really want you on that continued spending money. Like you said, you talked about the music, right? Like that's another one. Like streaming services. Like I was at a point where I had like 11 TV streaming services because each one has like one show and one show. But then when that show's over, like you're still paying that $15 a month for nothing. So those ones, sure, if you can afford it and that's the show you like, sign up for it when it's new. But when you're done watching it, cancel the subscription. Usually there's no penalty to cancel the subscription, and then you're not paying for it. Because if you're not going to watch anything but that show, wait for the new series to come out, right? Watch it and then cancel it. But that's another one because you're not seeing money come out, right? And that's one of the things that has been such a driver for corporate profits recently, right? It's getting people on a subscription model. Because if you don't see that you're spending, you're never going to pull back on it because you don't think you're actually spending it. So really get in there. Yeah, there was a question about what apps or what websites are good. I know Rocket Money, I think has a I know they have a bunch of commercials on Instagram and TikTok. I've seen some on TV too, where they say, "Oh, do you know how many services do you have?" And they're like, "Oh, I have two or three." And no, you really have 15. So does that app really do that? Yes. I don't know if anybody has actually tried to sign up for that app, but I have. And they walk you through, they ask you all these questions, and then they get to the end and what do you think this is worth to you a month? And then the options are 10, 20, or 30. So they're saying, we'll save you money and you can spend it here with us. Right. So it's not that the information isn't valuable, but again, you always have to watch out what you're signing up for, right? In this new digital age, there are so many ways to spend your money without actually taking something out, right? If you think about the history of money, it started, with cash, right? And everybody knew it's like, oh, I don't have any more cash. And then the credit card was invented. And then there was more spending because you're not actually, it's like, oh, I went out for dinner and then I just showed them this piece of plastic and all of a sudden dinner's free. You have to pay that back. But then people learned, hey, I got to think every time I swipe or every time I touch or every time I sign, I'm spending money. Now it's the phone, right? I ruined it. Um, let's get in there. Well, still be for the folks watching screen. Turn it. Um, but yeah, you can go tap your phone, right? We are getting so removed from what actually spending money is that it's so easy to overspend because we talked about direct deposits. No one gets a physical check anymore. No one goes to the bank anymore. No one does. I don't go to the ATM anymore, right? Because I know if I have cash in my pocket, I'm going to spend it, right? But then the other trick is that you're just going to spend it everywhere else. So as we get further and further away from the actual giving and getting, it is so much easier to lose track of everything. And that sounds like what's been a pretty common concern for everybody, is that there needs to be that mechanism to help people understand what's actually coming and going.
We had a question from someone who said that they are a senior nearing retirement and want to be better positioned to live comfortably on a fixed income. Currently, they're renting, but they're thinking about buying. Do you think that they should retire? Should I do it before I retire, or is it easier or harder to do when I'm no longer working?
So there's a lot of, it depends in that question, but it's a good question. So depending on what your retirement accounts look like, right? In general, every mortgage, they're going to look at what money you have coming in and look at what your overall ability to repay is, typically, or credit score, credit report. So while you're working and have reportable income, it's easy to say, I make this much. But then when you go into retirement and then you're just at your retirement accounts and Social Security, that's a finite number, right? If you're still working, technically you can earn unlimited money, right? But if you're not working, now well, this is how much my retirement accounts give me, and Social Security is, I know my mother's is $2,200 a month, right? So, right, we saw the average 30-year mortgage, right, is $2,700. So Social Security isn't enough. So my mom went to the bank right now. I mean, thankfully, we've been in Texas for almost 40 years, so her house is recently paid off, so she doesn't have that and allowed to do it. But if you're talking about looking to go buy a new house and your income is $2,200 a month, they're not going to sell you a house that costs $2,700 a month because you're not going to make it. So there's a lot of it depends in that question. Plus, moving somewhere else, you also have to take all of the other factors into account, particularly in retirement. If you're taking more medicines, have more doctor's visits, and you're moving farther out for it to be cheaper, what's the increase in gas you're going to spend, in tolls you're going to spend, in parking that you're going to spend, right? If you're going to the doctor and get more medicines, they're going to be a higher medicine cost, right? So it's a lot of stuff that you have to consider and figure out, especially if you're going to think about taking on a whole new mortgage as well too. But that's an excellent question.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. What else? Looks like we got about 15 minutes left. Okay. Then I'll just continue with, along that path. And it's a good question for retirement. But it also kind of ties into yours too, right? So you're the other side of that, right? Where now you have more. Can I afford more? Right. And it's one of those ones that you don't always want to be resetting yourself to the new standard. I remember coming out of college, thought it was great. Oh, I'm not going to be a starving student anymore, but you still kind of have that student mindset. So you're in your college apartment, you're still kind of shopping for the same groceries, and then it just kind of creeps in. You're like, well, I've got extra money. I can buy the nicer stuff at the store, or I can get a new car, or I can get a new apartment. So then you do that, but you've spent more on an apartment, but how much more really do you have? Right. So now you're kind of playing this catch up game again. Now you're back essentially in that same situation of you're not a starving college student. Now you're a starving working professional. Right. And then, let's say you make it to the executive level. Right. And now you're keeping up with the Joneses and moving up. And now you're a starving executive. Right. Because you're always chasing after, what else you can afford. I have more money, so I must spend more. And that's why I think it was, such a good, if you've made it on that salary, try to keep it on that salary, and then the extra, goes into a savings account. Because with that, when you think about if you want a trip, right? If you do want a new car, if you want to buy something from the store, you'll have saved it, you'll have thought about it, you know what the cost is and kind of what you're taking from, to get to. That's another thing that I like to do, especially going back to the internet purchases. I wish we could do virtual show of hands. But I'm sure I'll just assume everybody's going to say yes. When you're shopping for something online, you see that, oh, pay no money now, the Affirm or the Easy Pay, right? So now they've signed you up for credit. If you don't pay, you will consider it will be a charge. If you do pay, they don't report it to the credit agencies, right? So there's literally no benefit. And a lot of them are really short term, right? They're like 4 to 6 months. And so if you think you can pay that off in the 6 months, sure, sign up for it and do it. Just know that you'll have the thing, but you get no credit history, you get no financial benefit from it. I would say take that, save that amount every month for 6 months, and then decide if you really want to buy the thing. You will talk yourself out of so much stuff, like knowing the work that you have to put in and care for. It's like, my daughter is now into guitar. She likes playing guitar. So of course she wants this fancy like $6,000 guitar, which I keep telling her no. But yeah, we're looking at one of them and they're like, oh yeah, go on the Affirm Easy Plan. It's $1,000 a month. I'm like, who is that's a car payment. I can lease a Camry for that. But yeah, you really want to be careful of, all like I'm talking about all these factors. There's lifestyle creep, there's the ease of spending money, right? And it's just everything that you need to watch out for, right? I'm talking about leasing cars or buying a new car. You also have to wonder, does it take premium gas only? Do I have to carry full insurance? I used to, I had a paid off car and I was just carrying liability. Now I got to carry full insurance. And it's got to go for the synthetic oil and it got to go to this special shop. And then now, for the luxury of paying $1,000 a month for a new car, you have increased everything else, right? And that's the stuff that a lot of times people don't think about when they're going to buy a car. Is all of the other things, but apply that everywhere, right? I also know with apartments, right? That's another one. Nicer apartments, and the rent will be a little bit more, but you got to be careful too, because a lot of those ones that have amenities, actually, I'm in Louisville, and one of the places that I was looking at before I moved was at Grandscape, right by Nebraska Merchant Mart, the big high rise. Great building, right? Rent there is $3,000 a month, out of the question. But on top of that, right? So they're like, oh yeah, it's great. We have valet trash service. We'll come. You just set it out the front door, and we'll come pick it up. That's $60 a month, and then your parking spot is $20 a month. And then they have a concierge there 24 hours. And to have the concierge is another $30 a month, right? So those aren't services that you can't, like, oh, no, I just won't use it. You still have to pay for those too, right? And then there's amenities fees, right? So you really have to consider every single part of it as you're making a significant purchase like that, because it's really easy to get sold on I'll call it the sticker price, and not think about all the other incidentals that come with that. And that's, again, getting back to what I'm showing here. I'm on the keep track of all your expenses. Right. Make sure that you do that at every step of the way, because what used to be, like you said, some little purchases here and there, now all of a sudden is $300, $400, $500 a month, $700 a month, $1,000 a month that you didn't really think of. And you can't dig out of that. So
We had two other chat messages, and someone said that breaking spending habits was a really big deal for them, but if they apply these principles, they think they can get themselves out of the hole. So thank you.
of course.
And they also suggested that if you're looking for used guitars, you might think about pawn shops.
Yeah. I'm not looking for used guitars. I appreciate it. It's a good recommendation. Yeah, it's just.
I think that is an interesting thought, like how much stuff can you get that would be new to you, like when you're talking about cars.
Yeah.
I purchased cash cars, and that's the purpose of me saying. I know I'm gonna need another car in 2, 3 years, so I need money saved up, and I can't spend like this, I can't save it, you know.
Right.
Need to start writing it down, see how my money's going, do the different account where that money goes over there. When that 2 to 3 years is up, I'll have enough money to go purchase a cash. I can't do, my mind will not let me pay $1,000 for a car every month.
Right.
Just, I,
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing, you can try it on, right? So like in that where it doesn't fail. So if a car payment is $750, you can create an account, call it car, and then pay $750 to yourself every month, right? And then if you're like, man, this is expensive, why am I doing this? Right? Then all of a sudden your paid off car starts to look a whole lot better. Yeah. Um, back to I do like the shop at the pawn shop for used guitars. That's another one though to watch out for, right? And you've seen kind of some of them up here. There's a place in Frisco called Second Street. It's a thrift shop. You wouldn't know by the price tags on stuff. So thrifting has turned into like a trend, right? And so a lot of times it is really difficult to find even thrifted stuff at a good price because if it's really good, the people that there's professional thrifters, people that do it professionally are going to have bought it and put it for resale in their store, or um, and what I've seen in some cases is pawn shops, eBay, Facebook Marketplace. People are really starting to understand what their item is worth, and so they're willing to hold out for the person that's they're not trying to look to sell it to make some quick money. And unfortunately, to get stuff at a good price, you almost have to find somebody that is in a dire situation that is needing to unload stuff quickly. And then can you live with yourself? Or like, oh, you need to pay some medical bills. Well, can I give you $500 for your car? Right. And it's that's one of those that's kind of kept me out of that game because I just don't feel right about that.
So we had another question, where a person was saying, there's 3 big credit reporting services and that they don't all use the same criteria to determine scores. Which agency number is the most important?
So they're all important and they all are generally in the same area. It is true that they're all going to be different, but every year you can get one free credit report from each of those agencies every year at annualcreditreport.com. And so another thing that I do is every 4 months, I'll get one, right? So April, I'll get Experian. And then in July, I'll get TransUnion. And then in October, I'll get Equifax. And then the next April, it'll be ready, right, to start over again, right? So you time it out. You don't get all 3 at once because then you got to wait a whole year to get it again. So if you space them out, you can get a fresh credit report every 4 months and kind of keep that rolling because you get one free from each of them every year. Those are important because you want to make sure that other people haven't opened accounts in your name because those charges end up being responsibility. They can garnish, they can put a hold on your credit file so that when you've done all this work of saving all this good money and want to go use it, now you can't because something's happened. And it's not even to say it's bad activity, right? So my mother and my name are very similar. And I can't tell you how many times accounts that she's opened have shown up on my credit report. Now I know she's not filing stuff in my name, right? But then I'll be like, but did you check the social on this? And, right. So you can get them removed, right? But you want to make sure because they're humans too, right? They're going to make mistakes. So use those credit reports to make sure that everything's being reported accurately. It's another thing if anybody's like a junior or a third or a fourth, that happens all the time with those type situations. Okay. Is that it? Is the chat's done?
That's all the questions we have.
All right.
Any last minute questions for Reed? We'll wait another minute.
Yeah.
If anyone's typing. Right, well, if that's the end, then I think we'll just
Say thank you to Reed and thank you for all participating, and hopefully we'll see you at some of our other upcoming Plano Public Library and Bank of America joint events. So thanks all everyone for attending.
And I'll just say, but real quick before, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Love the questions. And also, you can go to bettermoneyhabits.com. It's a Bank of America website. We're not going to ask for your, we're not going to ask for your name. We're not going to make you log in. You don't have to have an account. If you have any questions about any financial matter, bettermoneyhabits.com. We'll have answers to those questions, and it's not going to be with a bunch of, it's not like taking a college level finance class, though. It's very plain language to help you understand like some of those things. They'll even go deeper into some of these topics that we talked about today. And it even has some worksheets on there too, to kind of help with budgeting and tracking. So
Great.
thank you so much. I appreciate it.